say, and I'll turn the microphone on. So firstly, thank you very much for coming this evening. I'm sure there are many more interesting things to be doing than listening to the presentation about boundary reviews, so I do very much appreciate that you've come along tonight. My name is Dan Carlson-Hislop. I'm a review officer from the Local Government Boundary Commission, and I'm going to be running the review here in Merton. Just got a fairly short presentation, just to explain why we're here, what we're going to be doing during this review, and then very happy to take whatever questions you've got, whatever conversation, discussion you've got. So just as a start, a little bit about the Local Government Boundary Commission. We're a very small organisation. We're not civil servants. We actually report to Parliament through the Speakers Committee. We've got about 20 staff and we support 6 commissioners. And it's worth stressing here, we are completely independent of the government. Our recommendations are approved by Parliament. And one of the reasons we've invited you here is we actually find it really useful to brief community groups in parish areas, parish councils about the electoral reviews that we do. Simply because you've got really good community networks, you speak to people, you've got access into the community that we really don't have. And also we do have a statutory obligation to consult, so it's very useful for us to have just a discussion with people like yourselves at the start of the review and really help us publicise the review. So, right, obvious first question, why are we here? Well, quite simply, the Commission has a duty under the legislation to review every council in England, quotes, from time to time. Now, we define from time to time as being roughly every 15 to 20 years. The last time Merton was reviewed was in 1999, prior to the local elections in 2002. So again, by the time you have your next local elections here, it will be 20 years since the council was last reviewed. The Commission also has a statutory duty to deliver what we call electoral equality. So essentially each councillor needs to represent roughly the same number of voters. And there is a little bit of electoral equality in Merton, not as severe as some of the councils we go to. But just to give you a rough example of the kind of thing I'm talking about, currently the 3 councils for Village Ward represent about 6,200 electors, but 3 fixed marsh councils represent about 8,500 electors. So there is a bit of disparity currently. And the wards you can't see terribly clearly from the map, the wards in purple are wards where there's fairly severe over-representation, so there's too few electors, and the 2 wards in green is where there's under-representation, so there's far more electors than there should be. I think it's just worth reporting and saying, though, at this point, that the electorate that will be kind of determined for this review isn't the figures which have been used to produce that map, which is the December 2017 electoral register. It's a forecast the council have prepared for us for 2025. And that, again, that's a requirement of the legislation. We have no choice at all on that. So it's worth bearing in mind that there's large developments going on, those numbers are going to be changed quite a bit. So if we have a big development, it could well be we have to make fairly significant changes to some areas which may have good electoral equality right now. So just to talk briefly about what we've done so far. So we've done a fair bit of work with the council. Since last year, the council have to do a fairly large amount of work to help us prepare for the review. And we've also spoken to the council about determining the council size, and that's a decision that the Commission makes before the review starts. Because again, that has quite a big effect in terms of designing the wards. So this is the review process. So we're currently in what we call the preliminary period, which is about to end. We have the review officially opens when we start our consultation on warding patterns on the 23rd of April. So on the 23rd of April, we will formally, publicly launch the review. We'll tell yourselves and everyone else how many councillors we are minded to go with for the new council. And we'll provide a fair bit of information primarily online about how the review will work and how you can get involved. So that first consultation runs for 10 weeks until the beginning of July. We'll then go away, we'll look at all the submissions we get, we'll come and visit Merton, we'll then draft or put together our draft recommendations. We then publish those draft recommendations on the 1st of October, and then there's a second public consultation for 10 weeks until December. We'll publish our final recommendations in February next year. We'll then put an order through Parliament so that the new boundaries come into force at the elections in 2022. So, the Commission is governed by 3 statutory criteria, and what our job is we have to balance those 3 statutory criteria. All of our decisions must be a balance of those criteria, and what I mean by balance is sometimes we'll need to put more weight on one of those criteria than others. And again, we would urge you, if you put a submission yourselves, to think about that, to try and balance those 3 criteria. So firstly, electoral equality. Well, that's a basic democratic principle. Each council should represent roughly the same number of electors. And the Commission defines electoral equality as saying that each ward should be within 10% of the average for Merton. So 10% either above or 10% low. So we have a certain degree of flexibility in terms of the numbers, but we don't have absolutely masses and masses of flexibility. The second criteria up there is community identities and interests, and obviously that's reasonably self-explanatory. How do you define a community? Is a community large enough just for a single ward, or perhaps you can have a ward with several communities in it? And the Commission does have to take regard for kind of the communities within the ward. And the last one is probably the hardest to define: effective and convenient local government. What that really means is that our boundaries should be clear. We shouldn't, for example, include a pocket of electors on the other side of the motorway in a ward. I'm told it does sometimes happen. This is your chance to correct it if that is in place here at the moment. So essentially it's about having sensible boundaries. In urban areas, for example, it's not having walls which are so small that they make no sense in the ground. In rural areas, we don't want wards which are, tens of square miles in size, which are impossibly large for councils to represent. So the review is an open process. We try to make it as easy as we possibly can for people to get involved. We will publish submissions on our website at the end of each stage of the review. It's also worth saying that most councils in London are being reviewed at the moment. Merton is about in the middle. So there is plenty of information online about the experiences of other London councils. I think the first council in our sort of tranche of London reviews, which is Harrow, is about to finish. So as I say, there is a fair bit of information on there at the moment. We had a big review a couple of years ago in Croydon, where we had some brilliant submissions, so obviously that's reasonably local to you. And certainly, there's a lot of stuff on Croydon, but it's certainly one that I'd encourage you to have a look at. So in terms of input from resident associations, people like yourselves, from the community, it's absolutely essential to us because we don't know Merton. I lived here until I was 10. I don't remember a huge amount, I'm afraid. So it is actually really important for us to get local input. From people like yourselves, we've had some fantastic submissions from resident associations in the past. We've based warding schemes on quite large areas on the basis of submissions from resident associations. So I know how valuable they are. A good submission makes my job a lot easier. So it's really, really important, and I would really strongly encourage you to tell us about your community and how this works from a warding point of view. So do feel free to put in submissions, maybe just for the ward where you live, or perhaps even kind of wider areas. We do sometimes get whole borough-wide submissions from resident associations or indeed members of the public, and say sometimes they are very, very good. Obviously, if you don't feel like putting a borough-wide submission, that's absolutely fine. But do bear in mind, if you construct a perfect ward in your area, that there may be a knock-on effect. So if you're, for example, on the edge of the borough, and you design an absolutely, I've seen this many times, you design an absolutely perfect ward for your area, and we get a huge amount of electoral equality in the neighbouring ward, we're not going to go with your submission, to put it bluntly. So do think about the knock-on effect of any proposals that you make. Clearly, we'd really appreciate your help talking to people, putting information either in newsletters, online, that sort of thing. And again, we have a small comms team, and they'd be very happy to help with things like posters and other information. So what sort of things are we kind of talking about as far as evidence, and particularly in terms of the community identity criterion, which is to be fair, where we get most of the evidence for our reviews. So it's events, it's shared facilities, which doctors use, which set of shops do you use, and what actually defines your community. It's quite interesting, actually. I find the most interesting submissions I get are ones where they talk about there's a blurred line between communities, and it's just interesting to explore why that is sometimes. But also show why facilities provide a focus for communities. Because there will be some facilities here which are used by everyone across the borough. So they're not a particularly local facility in that sense. So it's worth perhaps defining what actually makes a particular facility relevant to the local community. So just my last slide, here are some examples of what counts as a good representation. So what we want rationale, we get a lot of assertion, simply saying such and such. Actually give us reasons, explain why you're making a particular point. And this next one, if you take nothing else away, and I say this at every presentation I do, tell us what you like. If our draft recommendations come out and you think they're spot on for your area, your submission needs to be as long as if you vehemently oppose us. Because the way we work is if we get some objections to our proposals, we probably will change our draft recommendations. Over 90% of our reviews get changed between draft and final. We pretty much expect to change our draft recommendations. It happens pretty much all the time. So if you like what we're proposing, you need to tell us, because 2 or 3 good submissions which object to our draft recommendations will mean we will change them. And we do see this. We'll get letters from people saying, why did you change it? And I'll say, because you sent me 1 sentence, whereas the opposition sent me 5 pages and a lot of detailed explanation. So this is really quite important. However, if you do object to what we're proposing, what we really want to see is an alternative. Simply telling us you don't like it is not going to mean that we change our minds. I get told that I'm foolish and so on regularly. That doesn't change my mind. A brilliant alternative does. So I'd strongly recommend that if you don't agree, find a better alternative than what we're proposing. And then we want to see practical examples. Talk about actually how the community kind of interacts. And also remember all 3 criteria. I had a submission last year which said we don't consider electoral equality to be important. Well, the Commission does. So unfortunately that proposal was pretty much invalidated because the evidence there simply didn't fit our criteria. So please do bear that in mind. And finally, there's just a list of things we can't consider. So obviously we are a completely non-political organisation. Ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, I think our view is that Merton's not had a review for 20 years, so that counts as being broken from our point of view. We're not allowed to consider parliamentary boundaries. Parliamentary boundaries have to reflect our proposals, not the other way around. Postcodes, we get many submissions about postcodes, house prices, insurance. That is completely irrelevant from our point of view. So, those are my contact details. If you ever want a second opinion, there's my manager as well. Really happy to take any questions. Hi.
Will you consider possibilities of merging with other councils? So, for example, Wimbledon going into one with them?
Not as part of this review. So that's a separate process, and that's governed by quite different rules. That's actually determined by the Secretary of State, not by Parliament. So, as part of this review, no is the short answer.
So does that mean then you could tie within the boundary as it is now? So even if, say, a street offers in Southwark, you stay that?
I finished reviewing Cambridge start of this year. You should look at boundaries of Cambridge. As part of this review, no. The external boundaries of Merton won't change.
Just curious, you said Croydon is local to us. Just curious why you said that.
I guess it's not the South London Borough. And to say there's been a kind of reasonably big review there. We've had lots of very interesting stuff out of it. So to be honest, we'd be recommending people read about Croydon across London.
Would it be possible to see like a report of another borough or 2 that we could to get a flavor of? Because this is very, I think all these people here tonight, we're giving up our suppers.
Yeah.
And so are you. Thank you. But we treasure brand Wimbledon
Right.
and the history and heritage and all that.
Yeah.
And the initial suggestions that we've heard is that the two big things up the top are going to possibly be merged into one and be greatly reduced in sort of value in the whole borough. And so it actually is making us want to look at civil parishes or moving to another borough because we feel we're not getting equal representation. So it's a complex situation. And I'm sure if you've done Cambridge, there are Edinburgh, certain places have such strong brand identities. But would it be possible for us to have another, I don't know, even Richmond or?
Richmond we're going to start Richmond slightly after here. We've mostly been North London.
Yeah.
We've got reports available on our website for any number of counts. I'm just trying to think of
like a place that's got an iconic
comparator, sort of iconic. Certainly we've done in Cambridge recently, but they are boroughs. Obviously, they are two-tier authorities. I'm trying to think of
Hampshire.
Hampshire. We've done we've done a lot of county councils, but the rules are slightly different with counties, and we've slightly changed how we do our reports since we did a lot of county reviews prior to the elections in 2017. Last set of county elections. So we've slightly changed the style of our report. So it's possibly worth having a look at. If you look on our website and look under our current review section, you might see a council that you think, right, that's an area like us. But equally, if you want a recommendation, I can go through and perhaps a chat on the phone might be easier to try and identify areas that you think might be more similar.
I mean, we have a big master plan process happening now. It's generated the largest residence response rate in the 20 years I've been helping with planning. And I think, does that sound similar to you all? It's to us, we don't want our electoral power to be diminished.
I think, to be fair, if the electorate is rising faster in other areas of the borough, then obviously, as a matter of fairness, there will have to be changes. How significant those changes are, obviously, I can't say until we're a bit deeper into the review. I think it's certainly true on that map, as I showed you before, that areas in the northwest of the borough do seem to be overrepresented at the moment. That is dare I say, a plain fact based on the electorate data that we have.
Where the Croydon was interesting and worth having a look at is it broke with the 3-member wards only model. So at the moment all of our wards have 3 members. Croydon's got 3 members, 2 members and even a single member ward. So for London it was quite a different feel and quite a different approach to what we've seen really before. So it was interesting ideas where you had Park Hill, which is a very specific localised estate, created a single member ward because it has a real closed off sensibility in that sense. It's physically different from the areas around.
And so much has been changing. I mean, it's a city, so.
Yeah, and again, people in Berlin view Croydon very differently to people in Thornton Hills. Demographics are different, and populations are different, and the movement of different population groups is different. So in some senses, similar to the changes in Greece.
Can I just follow up, Chris's point? Thank you for making that. I think it's one thing that I should have said is, of course, you've only got 3 member wards here at the moment. That's due to a long, boring quirk in the history of the legislation that I won't go into. Under this review, we can create 1, 2 or 3 member wards. There is no difference for us. We are aware that people have very strong views about that. I hear them all the time. But that is just a fact in terms of how we will be running this review. So if you think a single member ward for your area would best represent you, then we can create them in this review, which we couldn't last time.
Does that mean a single member ward will have a third the number of electorate in it?
So a single member ward will have, say, 3,000 councillors, a 3-member ward will have 9,000.
So you're not aiming to have every ward approximately the same number of electorate in it?
Each councillor represents the same number of electors. So, a single member ward might have 3,000 electors, a 2-member 6,000, a 3-member would have 9,000.
And how many wards are you proposing in the new map?
We don't know yet, because firstly, until the Commission has decided how many councillors it's minded to recommend, and that won't be decided for a couple of weeks. So obviously that will have an effect. And clearly the total number of wards will be determined by the submissions. So if we get submissions which say we only want a single-member ward, you could have 60 wards. If you have submissions which only say 3-member ward, you'll get 20, obviously. So it just depends on the evidence that we get. So it could be any kind of combination.
So how many councillors? So you don't know yet how many councillors we're going to have?
No, the Commission hasn't decided. It decides that in a couple of
So
weeks.
just remind me, when is this review starting? Our
23rd.
submissions? Sorry?
23rd
Of
April.
April.
Yeah.
And by then there will have been a decision made on how many councillors, and you will have some kind of draft map for us to look at?
We won't have a draft
No.
map. What we'll publish is we'll publish the current wards,
Right.
and then it's for you and for everyone else with a connection with the borough to tell us where you think those boundaries should be. So we'll then put together our draft recommendations based on your submissions. So that first round is essentially just a blank map. And I do appreciate it's quite difficult to do.
Other than knowing how many councillors in total
Yeah.
are proposed
Yeah.
for
So
the
you
whole
know how
borough.
many councillors there are in total, and the crucial number that will generate is how many electors
Right.
each will represent based on that 2025 figure. So all of that information, it is reasonably complicated, so I must admit, but that information will be on our website. I'm very, very happy to talk to anyone about this. You know, if you're interested in putting together a scheme, you know, that's kind of what we're here for, to help you with that sort of thing.
So in that case, if there's a ward with 3 councillors and a ward with 1 council, will those 3 councillors have more power because they've got 3 votes on something?
That's an interesting. I'm not going to go into that. I think that's not really for us to make a judgment on. I think there are kind of small political views as to the benefits of single-member wards versus 3-member wards. And to say, you make a point that, you know, perhaps one area has more power because it has 3 councils versus an area with 1. The Commission's view is that, as far as we're concerned, 1, 2 or 3-member wards can be created as part of this review. If we get no submissions for single-member wards, we're not just going to randomly create them. We have to make our proposals based on the evidence that we get. We can't simply kind of go it alone just because we have a particular viewpoint on something. So again, I kind of completely understand there's a very kind of complex set of arguments versus 1, 2, 3-member wards. We see it a lot. We don't have a view as to which is better.
So is there an example of how it works, you know, when it comes to the community are trying to achieve something in a ward and they're relying on their councillors for support, and you've got a 3-councillor ward or a 1-councillor ward? How is that?
I think that's
I mean, are
not
there
really
examples?
for
No, it's not.
Commission.
No, but obviously
City of
that's
London
something.
has similar thing.
Pardon?
You've got in the City of London, there are different, I know it's different legislation for the city, but they have 2 council wards and 5, depending on the size of the electorate.
It's
It's
actually
an
quite
extremely
complex.
compact area, though, so
Sorry?
it's such a compact area, so dense, and it's, you know, it's a square mile, whatever.
It's also, most of the electorate are businesses, not
Yes. Well,
individuals.
So on that point, you know, Wimbledon is a tremendously international community. It adds to the delight of the whole borough, but because of the cultural diversity. And when I first heard about this, I'm a dual citizen, so when I thought, I was in a presentation by Merton Council, and they said, the village is depopulating. And I just thought, you're kidding me. They're building 1,000 flats, they're all occupied, they're new, and you're telling me we're going to lose 600 voters? And do you understand?
Yes, again, obviously the forecast has been put together for us by the Council's Planning Department, so they have an area of expertise there that I don't have. I think when I talk about electors, what I'm talking about is local government electors. So, in other words, as the law stands, that includes EU citizens.
And Commonwealth, doesn't it?
And Commonwealth, but they are obviously, they can vote in all elections here. So, when I talk about
The
electors,
Chinese?
it's people who it is people who are on the electoral register, and that's in the law. We have no discretion whatsoever. So we have to do this based on local government electors.
And how is the dramatic increase in housing that is being pushed going to affect this?
I think that, again, you'll see from the forecast when we publish that, we're still just going through that at the moment with the council, just to sort of be certain that kind of we're happy and they're happy. So again, we are, across London, we are generally seeing reasonable increases in terms of the electorate. And again, I'm not a planner.
No, but at the moment, unless it changes, if you take Merton just as an example, we've got a target per year of something like 13,000 new homes. Not specified how many people will live in each of those homes over the next 5 years.
There is modelling for that,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
which they've used, and it's based on what we know is going to happen or likely to happen, not on stuff that we don't know may or may not happen in the future.
Yeah.
So it's not based on the London plan targets.
The forecasts, the census forecasts are wildly optimistic.
Yeah.
And we already know the exodus on under 35s out of London. Sadiq Khan has his own reasons for bigging it up. But, you know, now with Brexit, all the retrenchment, I mean, do you know, is the EU voter going to be considered?
We have to go with the law as it stands at the start of the review. That's the Commission position.
Right.
So EU citizens
May or may not change.
Maybe we should wait a while.
We are not expecting the law to change on that.
So the EU will be able to vote here?
From our point of view, it's not so much whether they can vote. At the moment, when the review starts, unless the government puts through some pretty quick legislation before the 23rd of April, EU citizens are entitled to vote.
Mm-hmm.
Now, clearly, if the law changes, the council will have to redo its forecast, and we will delay the review, quite simply. So, again, as far as we're concerned, no one has said anything to me about the law changing. So, as EU citizens currently have the right to vote in local elections, they are included in the forecast.
So will you entertain if we see, are the census and the electoral projections going to be in the document that you're going to provide us?
We're not going to use the census.
No, we don't use the census.
Well, it seems pretty fundamental.
No, we use, again, this is based on the electorate. So what we'll publish is the electorate from, I believe, the 1st of January this year, and then we'll publish the forecast for 2025.
Okay.
So that's the data that we'll be publishing.
11,000 increase.
I'm sorry?
It's an 11,000 increase. 151,000, this is a
Oh, of course, yes.
151,000.
605
now to well, depending on which figure you believe, 162,000 and a bit
Yes.
In 2025.
in 2025.
And where have you found that?
Well, the council's already submitted views on what it thinks the number of councillors should be, and there's a Merton Council paper.
Yes. Are you a councillor?
I'm not.
So can we see that document?
Yes,
It's online.
Yes.
I've just downloaded it.
Yeah.
14th of March.
It went to the standards committee. The standards committee meeting on 14th.
So is that something that's being considered in the decision on how many councillors will be
Yes.
proposed for Merton?
We've had 3 submissions in terms of the number of councillors. 2 aren't in the public domain, so I'm going to be slightly careful about what I say. The council's submission is in the public domain as part of its agenda for the Standards Committee set on the 14th of March. So you can read the council's proposal now. It's sitting around
57.
57, yes. So that's what the council are proposing. They've put in a fairly substantial report on the number they want, on the forecast, a few other things. So if you're interested in a review, that's a good place to start. We'll publish the other submissions which aren't in the public domain yet on the 23rd of April.
The Lib Dems wanted to go to 60, stay at 60, and the Tories want a significant reduction.
So there's 57 deletion of 1 ward.
It's deletion of 3 councillors. Because the ward could change in terms of you could have 2-member ward, you could have 3-member ward, it could be any combination.
So the council haven't made any
No, that's for the next stage. Yeah.
One thing the council's paper does spend a lot of time talking about is the quality of the scrutiny process, the sort of demands on councillors for engaging with people and all the pressures of social media and all the rest of it. So it makes quite a lot on the workload on councillors. And so I guess there's a question in my head as to how useful is it for you to hear from us about our views on whether those demands are effective, whether they need to increase because actually the quality is frankly of engagement is low and the quality of scrutiny is low, and whether those issues around sort of, I suppose, workload and our expectations of workload on councils are legitimate, or do you just say, well, every council has the same pressures of scrutiny and representing electorate and all the rest of it?
I think in terms of the number of councillors, the Commission's policy is that's not a public consultation, and the reason for that, so we only have asked the council and political organisations associated with council. The reason for that is that years ago we did used to consult, and the majority of submissions used to say, we'll have one, thank you, or one's too many, or along those sorts of lines. And you'll appreciate we didn't find that terribly helpful. Now I appreciate people like yourselves who are working with the council perhaps do have a degree of knowledge that you could have made quite a decent submission. But I think our policy is it's simple. I would struggle, I live in Waltham Forest, I would struggle to write a decent council size submission for Waltham Forest. Just because I don't know how the council actually works on a
from our, well, it sounds like it's a non-issue. I mean, I think the issue would be to make baseline of today, should it be more or less, as opposed to starting with some perfect. So if we're just limited to boundaries, this must come up a lot. So for Borough and Mitcham, the issues around the relationship between ward boundaries and conservation area boundaries do seem to speak to us quite importantly in terms of identity, physical identity as well as community identity. That must be an issue which you deal with a lot. Is that a significant factor or not a significant factor in your consideration?
It's one factor among many. So do tell us where the boundaries are. If a ward currently crosses conservation area, you're implying that the wards do, then...
Yeah, it's one with like 95% of the ward, 95% of the conservation areas in one ward, and like tiny little fragments aren't.
I think that would, in that situation, again, assuming that the numbers and the other evidence allows that 95%, that would seem logical to be adding that in. So certainly in that kind of situation, it would seem perverse to not to.
And so another one would be big open spaces.
Yeah.
So you've got Wimbledon Common, you've got Mitcham Common in Merton. Just looking at your map up there, Mitcham Common is the bit in the bottom right. It's basically, which is green on one side and white on the other. It's got something going right through the middle of it. Now, obviously no one lives on the common, by definition, or shouldn't live on the common. Does actual geographical area matter to you?
No, or not in London. In the countryside, the actual size of a ward, yes.
So if we had views on the merit or otherwise of Mitcham Common, being within one ward as opposed to within two, that wouldn't be ruled out on the basis it makes the world's biggest ever ward.
That would come under effect when you local government, because if you're saying that the common is split between two wards, you're having to deal with two sets of councils, aren't you, in terms of management issues.
Yeah.
So actually, I would think it makes a lot of sense for the whole common. And, I've seen this in other areas. It's not going to affect any electors. You might have two wards arguing as to which way it should go.
Well, but come back to the point, actually, having 6 councillors saying you don't want it, maybe more powerful than 3.
Yeah. So I suppose it depends how you frame that up. I've had an argument up in Hillingdon where they have very much made the point that actually, no, the whole open area should be in one ward because that's how people see it. And that it's much better managed from that point of view. It makes no difference to us. I think it's a perfectly decent argument to make.
You could argue, on the other hand, that the conservators are responsible for the commons.
You could.
The Wimbledon Common and things. So, for example, I know a few years ago, the council tried to put parking restrictions on roads that were managed by the conservators in Wimbledon Common. And they said, get lost. And they couldn't do it, the council couldn't do anything about it.
It's a private,
Well, it's not private, it's a separate legal entity.
It is distinct, and
Yeah.
they can't put sausage bands on that either, because it's a common.
The same, I think, applies with Mitcham Common.
Well, do you have the Act of Parliament?
Yeah, it's a different Act of Parliament. We could go into that, but whatever happens, the council has some responsibilities for Mitcham Common. The Conservatives have quite a lot of responsibilities as well. That would be true actually anyway, because there's overlapping functions. One other point, which is probably not going to, but so there's thoughts about a neighbourhood plan for actually putting more in the sort of London town centre. But so if we had a neighbourhood plan boundary already established on that map, is that that goes to a very similar exercise in terms of defining what the boundary is and identity and sort of size and natural, not cross motorways and all that kind of thing. Does that sort of give it a head start in thinking that it could become a ward boundary? Because one of the issues for neighbourhood plans has been they've been crossing ward boundaries because the community doesn't like the ward boundaries.
I think neighbourhood plans are pretty sort of strong boundaries, I would say. It just depends, because I guess a neighbourhood plan is, in terms of the electorate, will have a completely different consideration in terms of the number of the electorate than what we'll be considering. So it could be much smaller, it could be much bigger.
So that would then come back to your whether it's 1, 2 or 3.
Yes, so it could be again, I think it's, personally, if possible, I think it's a good argument to make, say a neighbourhood plan should be within one ward, but I can see many situations in which that's not going to be possible. So, again, it's a point to make, but it's not something that I can stand here and promise that we won't cross a neighbourhood plan boundary. It is an argument that I've seen made elsewhere. We've generally tried to accommodate that where we can, but as I say, it's not always going to be possible.
I can see the merits of having a ward that covers the town centre. So I'm chairman of the Rings Park Association. Well, I think we've got 5 wards, and the Wimbledon has got a similar situation. They've got 5 wards, all that have bits that are part of the town centre.
That has been interesting.
Right.
Sorry, no, go on.
I'm going to say that if you did that, if you made Wimbledon the town centre and Range Park the town centre and had a ward for there, that disenfranchises the people around to a certain extent, having an impact on it. So you can argue both ways, I think.
I'm sorry to interrupt. It's interesting, that's come up in a few of our London reviews, that 20 years ago we were generally splitting town centres and going to the north, south or whatever, and there seems to be a trend now to put town centres back in wards, again on the effective community local government argument, because the police, local businesses, etc. want the whole town centre to be represented by the same 1, 2 or 3 councillors. So it's an interesting way, as you say, you can kind of argue it both ways, because the community next to the town centre probably does see it as
4 councillors.
That's where it gets tricky. That's why I can tell you we're not be getting 4 council wards. But yeah, it's a really interesting point.
If I can just make another point, picking up your issue about the number of councillors. Sorry, I'm a former councillor. Got no action right now, but how can I put it politely? There are those that do and those that don't do. And if you've only got 1 councillor in a ward and they don't do, you're stuck. So my own personal view is you need a minimum of 2. Just from a logical standpoint.
Or they could just fall in.
Sorry?
They could just fall in. There's even more.
Well, we've had situations in the past where members of the council have moved out of the area and the council encouraged them to still serve. This is quite a few years ago, because it cost too much money to have an election. So they did it all remotely, and frankly some of them were quite effective remotely.
Could I just take this slightly bigger? I mean, so you're Mitcham and you're Rains Park.
No, actually I think Wimbledon, but I'm chairman of the Rains Park Association.
Well, Rains Park is a better part of Wimbledon, sir. So, we want you to be with the Wimbledon. But do we not have too much bureaucracy as it is with 3 councillors per ward?
That's why we're leaving the EU, isn't it?
Yeah, thank you. Maybe. I wonder how they're getting on tonight. But it seems if we're the most interested groups on this, could we exchange emails and start a little team to work together to make this to strong for the next 20 years? Possibly? I mean, would you?
Sweet. Well, I have certainly other reviews I've done in London. Resident associations have worked together. Not having sat in a meeting together, they just talk to each other, they just phoned each other up.
Yeah.
So it makes no difference to me as to...
Yeah. But it would be a stronger submission if we had buy-in from more other wards who would share the same, you know, if we could agree the parameters of which we, why would...
There is also the Association of Wimbledon Residents Association.
The Borough.
Yeah.
But that is all principally the village. We're in Borough, but we're setting up a town group of residents associations because we have another 20. We have 20 in the village and probably 20 in the town. Yeah. Some are informal, but they're definitely groups that operate in, you know, the South Park, the Battles.
So is the RPA not part of
I'm sorry?
the Rains Park Association?
Are you at Rains Park in West Wimbledon?
It's part of it, yes. West Wimbledon
With
is part of Rains Park Association.
Max Gladstone?
Sorry?
Max is the rep in Borough. Yeah. Anyway, don't worry.
Any other questions?
So just came, so I'm not sure who's who.
This isn't restricted just to residents' association, is it?
Absolutely. Anyone can make a submission. It's a public consultation. So say we've invited resident associations, community groups along tonight. Again, simply because our experience is we often get very good stuff from resident associations. You do know your communities pretty well.
I mean, there are conflicts between local associations and residents' associations.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
and a massive overlap with membership, which isn't helpful either. But, so that's the politically.
Yes.
That's what we.
Yes.
That's the day job.
Yeah. we just have to find a solution. Resident associations disagree with each other. There are often turf wars, as you can expect there are between political parties.
In terms of our role as communicators of this process,
Yeah.
just letting people know, do we rely on you or do we rely on Chris to tell us on the 22nd that this is happening, or just giving bite-sized chunks as to what is the process and the right links and all that kind of thing?
You will probably get, it depends, we need to find an email list of contacts by the council. If you're on that, you'll get an email from us.
That's pretty partial.
Now, the council will also get an email from us saying, please contact anyone who we've not contacted. So if you're here, then the council will have your contact details. So we'll ask Chris to forward on information from us as well.
It's from you, it's not from the council, I think. It's the key point.
You get both.
Right.
It's worth saying,
You sick and tired of it.
that's, if that happens, I'll be very, very pleased. It's worth saying, we are running this review, we are responsible for the review. The council has no say in terms of what we propose other than as a very significant stakeholder. But the council doesn't make the final decision.
But when you publish your 23rd of April document, will the number in there about the projected future electoral population be an agreed figure?
That will agree to
So that is not open for
no.
however much we might rerun other models or make other assumptions, you would agree that.
We would agree that if you can provide us with exceedingly strong evidence that the council's forecast is wrong, then we will change that. We prefer, essentially, if we change the forecast, we're probably going to have to restart all year. So we prefer not to. It sets a level playing field at the start. But if we get exceedingly strong evidence, it happens very occasionally. If the council has forgotten about a development, we all make mistakes. So if they have, for example, that situation, then we will adjust the forecast.
Well, in our case, it's in the council's benefit to reduce the councillors in the village and hillside ward. Okay? I mean, it's heavily favoured
I think
council.
you're using the council's response with one of the political parties' response. It's not the same thing.
So how much has the political...
They make their own responses.
So the council's response has not been approved by Stephen Allen British and the cabinet?
By whom?
Standards.
I just said the leadership of the council seems to wish to be diminishing Wimbledon's voice at the council, and that's an issue that is a very topical issue in Merton.
So So what safeguards are there that Merton Labour are not influencing the outcome of?
Merton Labour is a stakeholder in the same way as all the other political parties are a stakeholder here. Obviously, the council here is run by the Labour Party. Obviously, they won the last election, they have that right. From our point of view, every submission is equal. What we decide the submissions on is the quality of the evidence in the submission. So we don't say it's from the council, they must know more than you as a resident. Because actually, what we find in practice is that sometimes resident submissions are a lot better than the council submission. So we go on the quality of the evidence, and so I can point you to schemes where we have rejected a council proposal in favour of schemes from resident associations, parish councils, etc. So we go on the quality of the evidence, not who it's from. Anything else?
Is it totally transparent in terms of the calculation of the future number of electors, of how that calculation is being made? What's
It's already in that report.
Sorry?
It's already in that report. We've published that report.
Yeah. So everything's in all the parameters, right?
So again, there's next it's fairly heavy planning stuff, but it's in that report that the council published on the 14th of March. Anything else? Thank you very much for attending.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Very appreciated.
And really look forward to getting some fantastic submissions from you all over the next year or so.
Can we have your email address?
I think it is. I believe the slides will be circulated to everyone who's come, but I can just, well, I'll put it up for you.
Yeah, of course.
West London.
Where are you interested in?